let me introduce you to the most expensive item in Sea of Thieves, the Skull of Siren Skull. With a whopping 50,000 gold in value, or 75,000 during Gold Rush, you can make a pretty penny by collecting these. The catch? Putting this item on your vessel literally curses your ship. And of course, this wouldn't be Sea of Thieves if a brand new piece of treasure wasn't tied to a whole bunch of exclusive cosmetics, meaning you're gonna have to fend off armies of pirates to get your hands on that skull. Needless to say that getting as many of these as possible is the name of the game, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that the hunt for the Siren Skull has resulted in some of the craziest fights I had in a long time. The only fights crazier than these are the ones you can find with our sponsor for today, Enlisted. If historically authentic World War II multiplayer shooters sounds interesting to you, then boy howdy do I have the game for ya. We might only be able to have 5 ships on the server in Sea of Thieves, but battles in Enlisted are absolutely massive, featuring dozens of soldiers as well as a variety of different vehicles both on the ground and in the sky. Honestly, this is one of my favorite settings for an FPS. You let me play through the invasion of Normandy and I'm a happy camper. And while Enlisted is historically authentic, using equipment, uniforms, vehicles, and locations that you would expect from the setting, the game itself is actually incredibly modern. It looks absolutely phenomenal. You can play it on PC, Xbox, as well as PlayStation, and they even have cross-platform support, so you can play with your friends on whatever platform they prefer. Oh, and did I mention that the game is completely free? That's right, there's no purchase necessary. You can simply follow the sponsored link in the description below, download the game, and get playing. So what are you waiting for? Throw yourself in the middle of the action and Enlisted today. And who knows, maybe we'll even see each other on the battlefield. Thanks a bunch to Enlisted for sponsoring today's video, and now, onto our standard programming. Now, the Siren Skull is an interesting item because you can only get it from one specific voyage. Said voyage appears as a ghostly note on your ship at random, however, the same is true for every other ship on the server. Knowing the note is gonna show up eventually, and also expecting to have to fight off other pirates, I figured it made sense to start my day off by supplying up. And I mean like properly supplying up. However, as fate would have it, the game did not want to give me that sort of time. I mean, doesn't hurt joining the hunt. Even if we're not gonna do it, right? I definitely did not feel like I was equipped to take on that challenge, and the game was destined to prove me right. After buying more captain supplies and running the island with my trusty storage crate, I decided to head on over to a sea fort in order to raid its supply bins rather than its vault, which is something the Phantoms most assuredly did not appreciate. Alas, I spent some time collecting any and everything I could to make sure that running out of cannonballs was not the reason I would lose. But no matter my intentions, the hand of fate continued to guide my actions, as by pure chance, the vessel holding onto one of the pieces of the Siren Skull was coming to my neck of the woods, which I knew because the key, the chest, and the skull itself are all marked on the map at all times. Taking a peek revealed that the vessel holding onto the chest was another sloop, which filled me with confidence. Unfortunately, they were keen-eyed enough to see me coming. I had wasted my surprise advantage by whiffing my chain shots and was now locked in naval combat. And when I say that I was not warmed up for that, I really mean it. It was definitely good that I went out of my way to get additional supplies, because to my count, I must have sank about 100 cannonballs straight into the ocean as part of this encounter, which gives you a bit of an idea for how long we were locked in combat for. But one thing struck me as odd. It was obvious that my opponent was a lot better at naval combat than me, but they never pushed their advantage. A satisfying 1 ball confirmed by a red hit marker was the answer as to why. With them waiting to respawn at the Ferry of the Damned and not a single cannonball being fired towards me, I knew that they must have also been playing solo. With this being a 1v1 sort of proposition, I felt like maybe I'd have a chance at winning even if my naval combat was lacking that day. At least that's what I thought until a cannonball hit me straight in the face. But you know me, not giving up is my magic, and let's just say that open combat is not the only way to win this fight. Jesus Christ, what the... Whoop, okay. Full sail. I'm kind of sinking. Nope, please. Finally! We have it! Uh-oh. The chest was now in my possession, but that did not make me the victor just yet. Because the stupid box is basically useless without the key, I now had to worry about how to defend it whilst also getting my hands on the missing piece. And my enemy knew that, which is why I decided to use that against him. The island holding the key was right in front of us, and I was certain that he'd scramble to try and find it before me. So I made the choice to ignore the dig spot entirely and went straight for his ship. Getting rid of his supply boxes would certainly put a dent in his ability to tear my vessel apart, and some conveniently located flotsam with no less than 2 kegs in it would be my weapon of choice to try and sink him. It was all rudimentary from here. His naval prowess was way better than mine, but in close combat, I still kept the upper hand. And in due time, his ship was sunk, so that means I win, right? Ha! Not if Rare has something to say about that. Because part of joining the hunt for the Skull of Siren Song is that if you sink in battle, your ship will respawn very close to its location. I was on borrowed time, so I fired on over to the island, used my phenomenal deduction skills to find the key on the first dig, and then returned to my masterfully steered ship that was ready to pick me up for a smooth getaway, if you ignore me eventually running into the island. The only thing left to do was go and sell it, but where do you sell it? Well, the turn-in location is only revealed to you once you open the chest, marked by a purple swirly in the sky that everyone who joined the hunt can see. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that once you do open the chest, the skull is going to curse your vessel. Yep, that's right. Whilst carrying the Skull of Siren Song, your ship will be sailing slower, giving opposing crews a chance to catch up to you, which is something my opponent must have not known, because after that Jack Sparrow level of outplay, he simply decided to take the L, and I can't even blame him. I had secured my first skull of the day, but one thing was very obvious. This took way more effort than it should have. It was still early in the day, but no doubt that more and more pirates would begin to join the hunt as time went on, meaning I needed help, and I got just the right person. I couldn't hit the broadside of a galleon with my cannons that day, so naturally, my choice fell on the Iron Sea Dog herself, Queen of One Balls, Micromads, whom you might remember from my Black Powder Voyage episode. And let's just say that I definitely felt like I was in good hands because she immediately got to flex her experience. Oh, somebody's already on it. We're gonna have to move.
Come over here and let me use my psychic powers to tell you, see if there's islands. That is Cutlass K.
Sick, okay. Onwards to Cutlass Koi.
Cutlass K. It's in the Ancient Isles. It's kind of near Thieves Haven.
How do you know that? What the? Okay, anyway, southeast.
3,000 hours, Cliff.
That's 2,000 too many if you ask me.
It's 3,000 too many if you ask me.
I was definitely in good hands, and that was just as well because our opponent had no intention of waiting for us. Before we even arrived at our destination, they had already found every piece they needed to get the skull, and in a bold move, decided to open it up right in front of us at the cost of cursing their ship. I respect that confidence if nothing else, but unfortunately for them, there was no running away now. I entrusted my vessel to Mads whilst going for a board. If being up close and personal was the best I could do, then by God, I had to take every opportunity I can get to make myself useful. Even their PvP Phantom Curse was not enough to deter me as I caught them by surprise to then go and look for the skull. Trust me, I was sweating my brains out to try and secure that steal, but as it turned out, Miss 3,000 Hours did not take the situation quite as seriously. Maddie, I need a pickup. I got the goods.
You need a pickup?
Yes, please.
Are you from Tennessee?
What?
Because you're the only 10 I see.
Okay. Keep that for when we sold the thing, okay? Yeah, that was not the sort of pickup I was asking for. Thankfully, her harpooning game was just as strong, and with a skull secured, we could go about sinking that other ship. Little did I know that this would be the last solo encounter of the day. Not that I wasn't trying really hard to win these 1v1s, but having an Iron Sea Dog on your ship is an advantage that's not to be underestimated. And neither was our enemy. We had no choice but to sink them then and there, because obviously, with the skull on our vessel, they would always catch up to us. But naturally, sinking them here meant that they could still beat us to the turn-in location thanks to the modified respawn. Now at that point, Mads had already a bunch of experience in hunting down Siren Skulls. Where I was at a loss as to how we should approach this next encounter, she knew exactly what we had to do to come out on top. Yeah, how do we do this? How do you want to do this?
What we're going to do is we're going to do a run around of the island. Just going to do a little loopy.
Okay.
We're going to assume that he comes off, sink his boat, and then go together.
Alright. I was putting all my faith in her. I mean, the plan was airtight. Our enemy had to choose between whether they wanted to keep their ship afloat or catch us at the turn-in. And since securing the skull is the win condition, their choice was obvious. By getting rid of their vessel, we would make sure that they'd have nowhere to respawn, meaning all we had to do was take them out one final time. And it's gonna come to absolutely nobody's surprise that the plan went exactly how Mads expected it to. Our phantom buddy tried to steal the skull off our ship when they noticed I was searching the island, and by that, got in contact with the business end of Mads' blunderbuss. Skull number 2 was officially ours. However, all that fighting had cost us a lot of supplies. And when it comes to the matter of cost, we cannot forget the fact that in that aforementioned Black Powder episode, Micromads had graciously sponsored my project with her doubloons. You could say that I was kind of in debt to her, which was a fact I tried to ignore. Because here's one thing you guys gotta learn. It's not about getting rich, it's about staying rich.
What are we down bad on the most? It's chain shots, right?
100% chain shots, yeah.
Alright, well why don't we just like swing past an outpost and I'll captain stop us. Actually, how up good are you on like finances in general? How broke are you, Cliff Terios?
How much money do you have?
I answer my question first. How much money do you have, Cliff?
Oh, look, the Voyage. Fine, we can talk about something else now. Yeah, they call me Silver Tongue for a reason, with a masterful diversion away from the fact that I was currently sitting on a fortune far surpassing 10 million gold pieces. We set out to collect our third and final skull of the day. Just that this one was going to be a lot more difficult to secure. We immediately knew that we were not the only ones who joined the hunt, because as we arrived at the first location, we noticed that somebody else had already found the key. And we would soon learn that they are not the only ones trying to get the skull. With a chest on our vessel and our enemies heading right towards us, I figured we had the luxury of choosing the battlefield. I'd rather avoid fighting amidst an active skeleton fleet or within the fog of the Fort of the Damned if I can help it. And since these guys were so hell-bent on coming right towards us, my wish was granted as well. We were off to a great start. Mads littered their ship and horse to the point where they had no choice but to back out. But because our previous fights went so well for us, I started to underestimate our opponents. We got outmaneuvered in a flash. Even an Iron Sea Dog cannot do anything if the bozo at the helm cannot give her an angle. And before I knew it, I found myself taken out. It became immediately apparent that, wasn't it for Mads and her vast amounts of experience, I would have lost this fight minutes into the engagement. Without her leadership and confidence telling me what to do at all times, when I felt myself overwhelmed, I wouldn't know what to do. We were once again facing off against opponents daunting a PvP curse, just that this time it was a duo. And to make matters worse, another ship was approaching before we could finish them off. I had to compose myself. Siren Skull aside, we needed to prioritize staying afloat, because with so many cooks in the kitchen, securing a hand-in after losing our supplies would be difficult. Which is the exact situation that our PvP curse and Joyce would have to face, because they just sank to the third party. Patience really paid off in this fight. All that was left to do now was to secure the key. I'm not worried about the naked sloop, to be honest.
I killed one.
Nice. Listen, they will chase us anyway. Let's just secure the loot so we know where the hand-in is.
Alright, sounds like a plan.
I hit him once. He's off.
Treasure! Be quick, there's another boat literally right here.
I'm trying to 1v1 this guy in the water. It's not going well for me.
No, I gotta raise him over.
Okay, he's dead.
Cool. Sorry, this boat's literally right here.
Oh god. Oh god. Okay, the rowboat is not functional anymore.
Third party? This is gonna be rough.
Damn, I just killed that guy first round. This was looking all sorts of bad. With every ship on the server joining the fray, I had no choice but to leave the key behind and help Mads to keep us afloat. Obviously, all these pirates had a great reason to attack us instead of each other, since we were the only ones currently in possession of a piece of the Siren Skull. If nothing else, leaving the key by the rocks made for a great diversion, which gave us a chance to reset. But you know what that means. If we had a chance to repair, the same holds true for every other ship in this fight. Naturally, this was more than enough time for the one vessel that had sunk to come back, and much to my misfortune, they were the ones who had obtained the key. I'd rather be fighting the naked sloop than the one with a PvP skeleton curse enjoyer, but alas, beggars can't be choosers. Winning this encounter by skill was becoming increasingly more difficult, even with micromads in my crew. Though let's not forget what we learned on our first fight. Skill is not the only way to victory.
Green sloop has sunk.
Perfect.
White sloop has sunk.
Awesome, okay.
God, we are good at this game. Just saying.
You're not gonna believe how we won this fight. When the naked sloop rammed our vessel, the green ship had simultaneously harpooned one of their members onto their deck. The ramming play must have dealt enough damage to sink them, whilst they were on the other ship making sure they sank too. Basically, we just witnessed mutually assured destruction with us being the sole benefactor. I mean, what can I say? If there's one thing that holds true, it's that Mads is and continues to be my good luck charm. Man, it's a shame that these kinds of fights happen so rarely. But hey, at least I still get enlisted if massive scale battles on demand is what I'm craving. You didn't forget, right? Surely you clicked the link in the description? Alright, just checking. Either way, of course we took this opportunity to open the chest in order to find our turn-in location, and after how much effort everybody on the server had put into that fight, I was not surprised to see that all of them had given up the chase. We had secured our third and final skull, and I can safely say that the hunt for the Skull of Siren Song is one of the best things Rare has ever added to the game. But hey, if you can't wait to see more of the Mads and Cliff duo, what about you check out that legendary Black Powder Voyage episode? You can find the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a day filled with riches on the sea, and until next time, peace.